Hello, and welcome to the Cryptocurrency News Channel. Today we're going to talk about three things. We're going to talk about Facebook Libra and how they're trying to get a payments license in Switzerland, MoneyRebel, which is implementing XRP for cross-border transactions. They're implementing XRapid in part of like phase 3. They still have to get through phase 1 and phase 2 first, but they will get to phase 3. And I'm actually going to explain once again how XRapid is actually going to raise XRP's price. And it's not just by flushing a lot of money through XRapid, because that doesn't really do much. So Facebook Libra actually is pursuing a payments license in Switzerland. US authorities are pretty mad about that because they see that as a way to bypass the tough US regulations to start and go into Switzerland instead. That part is actually true. Switzerland's regulations are very lax compared to the United States. A lot of payment companies actually go to Switzerland because the regulations are easy. It's the same reason why all those exchanges went to Malta, because Malta regulations are actually much easier than US regulations. And the thing is, getting a license there means it's actually valid for the EU because Switzerland is part of the EU. So a lot of regulators are up in arms about this, that Binance took the easy way out. But honestly, of course they were going to, not Binance, I mean Libra, Facebook Libra, or the Libra Association is actually taking the easy way out. But of course they're going to take the easy way out. They're not dumb. I mean, they're not going to try to just stay in the US and not get a license unless the US grants them one. They're going to go somewhere where it's easy to get one. I'm surprised they didn't go to Malta, but they're going to Switzerland to get a license, and they will probably get it in Switzerland. Now, the other regulators, they're probably going to put up roadblocks for them, but I do believe Libra is eventually going to happen. It might just take a little longer than usual. The second news is MoneyRebel is implementing an XRP for cross-border transactions. MoneyRebel is a very small company that actually is a financial platform that's a mobile app. Since October of 2018, about a year ago, their app has received, on the Android store, they only have 24 ratings. On the Apple store, they have 10 ratings. On the Android store, they have less than 1,000 installs. They're in the 500 plus category. They're not in the 1,000 plus category. So they have less than 500 installs over the course of a year. But they are actually implementing XRP as the third phase of one of their platforms for remittances. Now, I'm pretty sure it's actual XRP and not just Xcurrent, because they mentioned cryptocurrencies and they actually have a crypto wallet involved. I don't expect this to actually help price anytime soon, because this is the phase 3 of their implementation and they're not really even through phase 1 and phase 2 quite yet. And plus, because they only have less than 1,000 downloads over the last year, they're not very popular. But maybe if they actually offer very cheap remittances, they will become more and more popular, so they could be a player far off in the future, but they're not a player off right now. However, that is another startup company that is going to use XRP, which is always good for the community. Even if it fails, it's not really going to hurt Ripple. It's not going to hurt XRP. It can only help XRP if it succeeds. So yay, I guess. I mean, nothing that big. It's not like MoneyGram, but still pretty cool overall. So now I'm going to explain how XRapid increases volume, and this does take a bit from Bob Way's explanation on XRP chat. So there's two kinds of trading volume. One is speculative volume, the other is wash trading volume. Speculative volume is actual people who buy XRP and then hold in hopes for a higher price. That puts upward pressure on the price if a lot of people buy and hold. Wash trading volume does not put much upward pressure on price. Wash trading volume is basically buying and then selling at the same price to generate what looks like volume to make the exchange look good. Now, XRapid actually works a lot more like wash trading volume than speculative volume, because XRapid, what it does is it buys XRP at one exchange and sells at the exact same price on another exchange. So it's basically buying and selling at the same price. It acts more like wash trading, which doesn't put upward pressure on the price, than actual speculative buying, which does push which does actually put pressure on price. However, it's not exactly like wash trading, because wash trading generally is just buying and selling on the same exchange, whereas this, we're talking about buying on one exchange and selling on the other at the same price. The real difference there is that actually is, if you actually do that on a large scale, it will actually force some of the exchanges to hold liquidity to actually make the system, to make the whole entire XRapid system work. Because think about it, if let's say if Bitstamp is if Bitstamp is sending Bitso, so we're going to use the U.S. Mexican corridor because that's the most obvious example. If the U.S. is sending $100 million worth of remittances to Mexico per day, and then Mexico is sending only $2 million back, that's a negative 98 million deficit for the United States, which means you're losing $98 million in XRP every day. I mean, you're not really losing the money because you're getting fiat for it, but the actual XRP you have will decrease by 98 million a day. Assuming that XRP is $1. Obviously, it would take a lot more XRP right now because it's only 25 cents. But let's assume XRP is $1 just for easier calculations. So 98, you have a negative 98 total. So that means that the U.S. exchange, let's say Bitstamp, actually has to hold a large pool of XRP depending on how often they rebalance. Now, ideally, it would automatically rebalance every 5 seconds, but that's generally not going to happen because the people who control and have to buy and rebalance this XRP are actual people or market makers, and they actually have to talk to other market makers to get that XRP because other market makers aren't just going to give them the XRP for free. They have to make a deal and shuffle the XRP around because this is real money changing hands, and that a lot of that can be automated, but it's not going to be completely automated, and they're not going to rebalance. I don't think they're ever really going to rebalance in real time based on market conditions. So this over here, so the American exchange, because it's sending out, it's actually sending out a lot more XRP than it's receiving, will actually have to hold a good amount of liquidity just for the Mexican corridor. How much liquidity? I would say at least a day's worth, maybe no more. So it's kind of like a pre-funded account, honestly. So you're basically, a lot of it is you're actually trading a pre-funded account in cash to a pre-funded, to basically a liquidity pool in XRP. So does it really solve the I have to hold X amount of cash problem? It really doesn't. You're just trading the cash for XRP. I'm guessing you have to hold less cash than less XRP than actual cash. So it does solve part of the problem. Although with Swift GPI and Xcurrent being able to transact in a couple of seconds, being able to tap into domestic systems and settle within a few minutes or a few seconds, the amount of nostro vostro will actually dramatically decrease anyways. But you are going, instead of holding cash, you're going to have to hold a liquidity pool of XRP, and that liquidity pool is going to have to stay with the market makers just so we can make the transactions, because XRapid is supposed to run 24/7. However, so I don't know how much of the whole pre-funding thing it solves or liquidity it frees up, because the pool that they're holding is not freed up liquidity. That has to stay with the market maker just to make the system work. What we're depending on is that amount that they have to hold. The liquidity pool they have to hold in XRP is going to be less than the one they have to hold in cash. So that's actually what the freeing up of funds actually means. How much less? I don't really know. I have to do a lot of calculations to see how this stuff works, and I don't really have all the insider information to do that anyways. And plus, you want the liquidity holders to hold liquidity, because if they can rebalance right away, it would take trillions of dollars worth of volume to get XRP even into the double-digit dollars if they didn't have to hold liquidity. Because you can actually do a transaction with XRapid in a minute or two, so you could actually wash trade the same. If you have $60-70 billion in the system, you can wash trade trillions of dollars a day, just based on $60 or $70 billion, easily trillions, maybe even tens of trillions a day. But maybe even tens of trillions a day if you only have 60 or 70 billion in the system. So that's no good. You want this system where they don't rebalance immediately, which they're never really going to get to that point, in which the market makers have to hold large amounts of liquidity, because at that point, that means that liquidity is basically off the market, and that actually will decrease the real supply of XRP that's actually circulating, and a decrease in the real supply of XRP that is actually circulating will increase the price because of demand. So that's actually how the best way that XRapid can actually increase price. It's by market makers. It's not actually by how much volume you can wash trade, but the more volume you wash trade among exchanges, the more liquidity that these exchanges are going to have to hold. So the liquidity that these exchanges are holding are basically replacing the nostro vostro pre-funded accounts that exist right now. Yes, the liquidity is still going to be locked up within these market makers to use the system. So how much it solves the pre-funding problem, I don't know. But if Ripple convinces them to trade their nostro vostro cash deposits for this liquidity pool of XRP, then our investment actually goes up a lot in value. So it's really not solving the pre-funded accounts problem all that much. You're still going to have to hold liquidity, but it will make us very rich if they have to hold the XRP, because that puts upward pressure on the price since they have to hold a large pool of it. So that's how XRapid would actually increase price. And if you actually read Bob Way's example, he basically says the exact same thing. But that's a longer, more detailed explanation of how the system actually works. So that is the news for today. Let me know what you think in the comments. Also, please like and subscribe and hit that notifications button and tweet out or retweet my video on social media. That would help me a lot. Thank you and have a nice day.